There are many different races that within history have struggled with equal educational opportunities, but I just wanted to focus on Black Americans and what they have faced and what they have struggled with. And something that they've struggled with is these compulsory ignorancy laws. The first law, prohibited education to slaves, was passed in South Carolina in 1740. In 1823, Mississippi law prohibited 6 or more Negroes from gathering for educational purposes. In Louisiana, a 1830 law imposed a prison sentence on anyone caught teaching slaves to read and write. But this didn't stop them from learning, as we know. They risked the penalties of these laws and even dangers of violence for a chance to learn. One way they did this was by secretly attending something called clandestine schools in the South. And they would basically meet privately. They would go into these places one by one so it doesn't look like a crowd of them gathering. And they would even wrap their books in order to hide them so no one knows what they're there for. The Civil War brought an end to these policies of compulsory ignorance and an affirmation of Black people's beliefs in the power of education. Many white Southerners responded to the education of Blacks with fear and with anger, and some even decided to terrorize these schools in hopes to stop the learning. States passed laws that explicitly provided for segregated schools. In the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson Supreme Court decision, segregation became a legally sanctioned part of the American way of life. The court created the doctrine separate but equal, which was not only legalized separating railroad passenger cars for Black and white Americans, but it also justified a legally segregated school system. And separate was not equal. In 1907, Mississippi spent $5.02 for the education of each white child, but only $1.10 for each Black child. And in 1924, the state paid more than $1 million to transport whites long distances to school and didn't spend a penny on Blacks who had to walk miles without question just to get to school. The dual school system based on race was in existence in the South, clearly. There wasn't enough books, there wasn't enough seats or space. There wasn't enough seats or space, equipment, or facilities, and teaching Black children separate but unequal. So the law passed separate but equal, but these Black children, all they feel is separate and unequal. In Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka in Kansas, the court ruled unanimously that in the field of public education, separate but equal has no place. In 1964, President Johnson and Congress moved boldly to eradicate segregation, and the Civil Rights Act gave the federal government power to help local school districts desegregate. The Civil Rights Acts produced more desegregation in the next 4 years than the Brown decision had in the preceding decade. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, the Supreme Court also attacked this dual system of segregation and supported busing, racial quotas, and school pairing to eradicate school segregation in both the North and the South. Even as schools became more radically balanced, new barriers appeared, separated by tracking, being treated differently by teachers and administration, and even some racist students as well, and gravitation towards different areas of the school was happening. This, within the school segregation, was considered to be second-generation segregation. As the century drew to a close, though, firm racial set-asides were eliminated, and the courts made it so race could be a factor in promoting diversity, but not a major factor. Today, there are mixed views on segregation. Some think that segregated schools would protect Black and Hispanic cultures. Others believe that students who attend integrated schools are more comfortable with peers from diverse racial, cultural, and socioeconomical backgrounds and more understanding of different points of views, and that resegregation would basically diminish all of those beliefs.